Hey guys, what's going on? Back with another Cold War Zombies video, and this is going to be something different, something that kind of has to do with real life stuff, and those are kind of like the Easter egg or kind of like storyline stuff that I love. Not necessarily so much the in-game stuff. The in-game stuff is cool, again, but I just like doing high rounds. The Easter eggs are going to be easier this year, so that's going to be something new and fun that I'll get into. But I just kind of realized, kind of a paradox, kind of almost like the title says, life imitating art, imitating life. You know, like a kind of a full circle, kind of like a paradox, where if you look at the overall picture, it's kind of cool to see how everything is intertwined. It kind of even goes in a circle, and again, it's almost like a paradox. You're kind of figuring out over maybe even kind of figuring out like what came first, the chicken or the egg type thing. So what I want to talk about, as you guys know, in Black Ops 2, we had Origins, and that was the first time Jason Blundell introduced to us about the idea of a little American girl telling the story of a German little girl and kind of her dad Maxis and Richtofen and stuff like that. And that we kind of found out at the end, in the end cutscene in Origins, that all it was a little girl and maybe her boyfriend at the time, maybe just a friend, playing with figures, action figures, and she's American. He's American, I believe. And it's supposed to symbolize, and I'll show you the breakdown, but it's supposed to symbolize the real life inspiration for zombies. And like I said, now it kind of almost becomes a paradox, which is going to be really cool when you see it. Again, she's American in Origins. It's the beginning of the story. It's telling, obviously, like it says, the origin of the story. How it's an American girl telling the story about a German little girl and the kind of stuff that she has to go through. I think maybe her dad dies and stuff like that. And Primus and Ultimus, well, not really Primus, but Ultimus, and kind of the story about a little girl, her dad, and his friends, I guess, that kind of help uh, kill zombies and stuff like that. So that's kind of like it's already complicated, it is, but I will break it down so much easier for you guys. So I kind of made this pretty much a PowerPoint, and it kind of shows you, and it's going to show how it's going to intertwine, again, almost like a paradox, almost kind of like a life imitating art, like I said, imitating life. So the first original story, real life stuff, and I'll show you how Treyarch used that in Zombies. So it's an American Sam. I'm not going to use the real person's real name or their real identity. Obviously, it's going to come into legal issues and stuff like that. I'm not going to even tell you how old they are, but there's an American Sam in real life that is married to American Eddie, and she writes and tells stories of a little girl, a little German girl, maybe or maybe not, named Samantha, and she's married, or her boyfriend is, a German Eddie. So that's like the real life backstory. I know that's a little bit vague because I'm purposely leaving it vague. So at the time, I might have mentioned their real names and stuff like that, but in hindsight and now, I feel like it's kind of cool being one of the only ones outside of Treyarch that knows who the identity is. And at the same time, I don't want it to kind of ruin the story of, Samantha Maxis and stuff like that. It's kind of like Jason Blundell even said, it's kind of like uh, pulling back the curtain and stuff like that. You really don't want to see um, how the magic is made, so to speak. You just kind of want to enjoy the show. So I'm not going to tell you their identity, but again, in real life, it's an American girl married to Eddie and telling stories about a little German girl. Um, believe in her stories, she's also maybe married to an American version, a German version of the American Eddie. So in the original World at War story, again, this is just recapping it. It's a German little girl who, I'm just kind of just loosely summing up the story. It's all obviously very in depth and very complicated. But the original story, World at War, maybe Black Ops 1, German little girl who is angry because her dad died and wants revenge. her and Richtofen don't get along, and that's the most loose summing up of the story. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. I know there's a lot more to it, but just to kind of keep everything kind of connected, and I don't want to go off and tell like side stories and stuff like that. So it's a little girl. The zombies are controlled by her, and the zombies say her name Sam. That was original in Nocturne on Toten, um, and Doris, and in the other maps in World at War, which of course I'm drawing a blank. But anyways, those are kind of the original stories. Noct, Doris, um, what was it? Noct, Doris. I know there's the Japanese map, and then I forget the other ones. But anyways, probably gonna laugh. How you can tell a story about the stuff and then you can't even tell the original story? You don't even know the original maps. Anyways, just a kind of funny little side thing. So after the original World at War and Black Ops 1, Jason Blundell stepped in after Jimmy Zielinski left, and he tells his new story. And at the end of Black Ops 2, at the end of Origins, like I said, you find out that it was just an American girl. Again, like in the intro cutscene, it's American Sam narrating, telling the story. It may be a story that she wrote, and she says in the beginning there were two German scientists, and one of them being her German version of herself, telling the story. So, and Blundell kind of reveals that to us. I think a lot of times, uh, obviously it's retelling the story, and ultimately, as you saw in Black Ops 4, he wanted to end it anyway. So I think when you want to end the story, you kind of have the big reveal. So that was kind of, in a way, like the big reveal was to tell you that, oh, it was just based off of an American girl telling a story about a German little girl. Um, and, Eddie is there telling in the story also and stuff like that. Which is funny. Well, you don't ever really see the adult version. I think this will be the only time, or that'll be the only time that you'll ever see the American version. I think maybe Treyarch Blundell was a little bit premature revealing that, because that's a big piece of the zombie lore. I think in the future, if they ever do like an Origins remake, I don't think obviously it's gonna have the same and the cutscene. I think that was very premature. Zombies were only like what, 1, 2, 3 years old. I guess they didn't realize how lucrative it could be or can be. So Blundell kind of, in a way, in my opinion, prematurely having the big reveal, because this is the big reveal that it's ultimately based off a real story about an American girl telling a story about a German little girl. So now that brings us to Cold War, where again the story kind of repeats itself. How there is probably an American girl somewhere. I don't know if the American Samantha, who is the original storyteller slash writer, if she's still a little girl, or as an adult. She might be a little girl just fantasizing about, hey, when she becomes an adult, let me write a story about when I become an adult, that I want to be an FBI agent, or I want to help, like it's a second or third book in her story, maybe about how her dad died. Maybe she wants revenge, or, she wants to retell the story, but in this time, she's going to tell it as an American version, as an adult version of herself, if that makes sense. So again, that's where we are now. She is a German Samantha. So off to the side, or let's say in real life, we don't know if what age the real American girl is at this point. It could be that maybe she's an adult now and she's still writing stories, still fantasizing. Probably not necessarily playing with dolls in her room, because I'm just gonna imagine she's probably older now, telling the story, maybe keeping it paralleling her real life. Maybe she's in her 30s or 40s. I don't know how old Sam is in this. Let's say 30s. I don't want to say 40s because 40s would probably be too old. Let's say she's in her maybe late 20s, early 30s in Cold War. We don't know yet how old the American version is that's telling the story, if she is older or younger. So that being said, my idea of the paradox would be, how cool would it be if the voice actor, who's Julie Nathanson, and this is her uh, Twitter account, how cool in a paradoxing way, or paradoxically way, I think, if Treyarch has her, the American version of Samantha, how cool it would be if she wrote maybe a 1 map, maybe a 2 map, maybe a short story, or maybe have her at the end narrating the end cutscene, maybe in the final Cold War, DLC, Outbreak, whatever it is, maybe another version of Origins. How cool would it be if they have, almost like Tank Dempsey, have her break the fourth wall and have her like maybe show or tell the story of her Samantha Maxis Treyarch character. How cool would be? I know there's a lot of writing issue. You have to be in a union, so I don't know if she's like part of the union. I don't know the legalities of it, but how cool it would be if Treyarch at one point, maybe even in Black Ops 6, or maybe at the end of the Cold War cycle, they have her write maybe the story, or show her like at one point writing a map. Let's say in the final end scene or the credits, it says written by Julie Nathanson. How cool that would be, that you get basically the American version, the real life American version of Sam. Not the original real life Sam, but more the current version of the real life Sam, writing the story and telling the story of the adult German Samantha. Um, like I said, it's probably going to be kind of a short one, but just kind of want to sum up how cool it would be in life imitating art, imitating life, and kind of a paradox that now she is an adult American Samantha writing the story of a German Samantha. Anyways, I'll see you guys later.